This is the Revere City Council meeting of June 2nd, 2014. All rise and salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call of the members. Councilor Rigo?
Here.
Here. Councilor Janino? Here. Here. Councilor Guanasso? Here. Councilor Haas? Here. Councilor Morbido?
Here.
Here. Councilor Novoselsky?
Here.
Here. Councilor Patch?
Here.
Here. Councilor Penta? Here. Councilor Powers?
Here.
Here. Councilor Reardon?
Here.
Here. And Council President Zambuto?
Here.
Here. A quorum is present. Approval of the journals of the meeting of May 19th, 2014.
All in favor, all opposed? So voted.
Calendar item number 1 is the presentation of the City of Revere Community Scholarship.
Up and running, the 14th consecutive year. My name is Catherine Romano, and I am the retired Wayland School principal. I am humbled and honored to be here tonight. And now, during my retirement, I am volunteering my time to chair the City of Revere Community Scholarship Program. Unbelievable, but true. 14 years ago, standing right here, I thought and said that the project that we're involved in my opinion, was a rising star for the City of Revere. And I am thrilled that, to my opinion, it is. And Revere has risen. Revere High School is the best urban high school in the nation. That's right. First and foremost, I must thank all the people who donated to make tonight's scholarship presentation possible. The scholarship money comes from donations. Not 1 cent of tax money is involved. It's purely donations. This year, because of the increased donations, the scholarship amount is $5,000. Receiving the scholarship in the past, the students have been able to attend Boston College, Suffolk University, St. Anselm's, Providence College, Northeastern University, University of Lowell, Stonehill College, University of Massachusetts at Amherst. And I'm very happy to report that the recipients are doing extremely well in college. They've been graduating summa cum laude, on the dean's list, and they're receiving internships in their field of choice. And I'm going to tell you about one student who, because of this scholarship, attending the University of Massachusetts in Amherst and doing very, very well, he received another scholarship of $2,000 per semester. So I think it's wonderful for him. And I'm going to tell you that he is going to England in September. This will be his beginning of his third year for one semester at Oxford University, which is very, very prestigious and very, very competitive. But right now, he's in San Francisco at the University of California with a full-time summer internship. At this time, I must thank all the committee members for volunteering their time and effort. The committee members are Dr. Paul Dakin, Superintendent of Schools, as mandated by the law; George Anzoni, Revere's Chief Financial Officer; Counselor John F. Powers; Carol A. Ty, retired Superintendent of Schools; and Dr. Gennaro Cataldo. Are you here? Okay. He's a local dentist and a Boston University professor. And Mayor Dan Rizzo, right behind me. Some background information. I'll give you some dates. 1993, 1994, 2000, and 2001. In 1993, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts enacted into law Mass General Laws, Title IX, Chapter 60, a statute that any city or town could establish a community scholarship fund, the money to come from donations, no tax money to be used. Although there are 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, not every city or town has a community scholarship program. Thus, I ask, how did this program become established in the city of Revere? The late George V. Colella, an avid reader, saw that the city of Newton was involved in the program, so he thought he would push it forth for the city of Revere. The late George V. Colella, and I think that's right there is his photo, he was very, very concerned about Revere and the youth of the city. George V. Colella was first elected to the school committee in his early 20s, then became counselor at large. Served 20 years as mayor, and then again served as counselor at large. In 1994, Counselor George V. Colella submitted a motion approved by the entire city council that the city of Revere establish a community scholarship award, which became a city ordinance after being signed by Counselor Robert J. Hass Jr., who was mayor at the time. The City of Revere Community Scholarship Program was put into motion by the efforts of the late Counselor, school committee member and mayor, George V. Colella, and by Counselor John F. Powers. Thus, at this time, I shall call upon Counselor Powers to say a few words of how he got involved and his involvement. Counselor Powers.
Thank you very much, Catherine. When I first was elected in 2000, that year I attended the graduation, and Councilor Colella and myself were sort of together, and it came to our attention that there was no community scholarship being awarded that year. So subsequently, we put a motion in for the City Council to reestablish the scholarship program. I believe at that time there was about $11,000 in the fund. It was lying there dormant. The motion passed, and in 2001, we awarded our first scholarship. Since that time, we've awarded over $53,000 in scholarships to 14 individuals coming out of the Revere school system. The fella we're awarding the scholarship to tonight ranks very, very high in his class. But even beyond that, he puts time into community service. He's coached and umpired Little League at Revere Little League. And he continues to stay in his community and work here for the better of the community. And that's really what we like to see from people that are receiving these scholarships, people that are going to give back something. And I also want to mention that his dad also coached Little League, so I guess it runs in the family, giving back to the community. And we want to congratulate them for that, all of them. As Catherine Romano may have mentioned, Matthew will be going to Syracuse University, and he'll be majoring in international relations, which is a tremendous thing today for a young man to get involved in. This scholarship happens for several reasons. I think the first reason is the excellent job that Dr. Paul Dakin, his administrative and teaching staff do in the Revere school system. That's where it starts. And then you have the people who volunteer and contribute every year, so that we've been able to give out $53,000 in scholarships, and we have a little surplus that will help us next year, but we are looking right now for everyone to get involved. Be proud of your community, take part in your community. Donate to your, I don't care if it's $1, $5, $10, $100, or $1,000. Whatever you can afford, whatever you think you want to give back to your community. I also want to thank our staff that made this possible. Certainly, when we started out, I think Carol Ty was asked to find someone who would be able to keep the records. Simple job, really, at that time. And she selected Catherine Romano. And I don't think Catherine Romano knew at that time what she was getting herself into. But I think also if she did, she would have gone right ahead. She does a tremendous job. We're the committee. Our names are on the stationery. But Catherine Romano does all of the work, and we want to congratulate her. No doubt about it. And with that said now, I'm going to offer my congratulations to Matthew. And I know, Dan, you going to say a few words? Or I don't know. I think the mayor would like to say a few words. Yes. I think he should say a few words.
I have to tell you this. Carol Ty is very, very smart, because when I was in high school, it was a debate in my mind. Should I be a teacher, or I was thinking of becoming an accountant? And as a matter of fact, I applied to Boston University College of Business Administration to become an accountant.
Wow.
So.
Maybe she saw something.
That's right. I want to thank you very much for your very kind words, Councilor Powers, and now the presentation. $5,000 presented to Matthew Roncevich. Matthew, why don't you get closer? Matthew is going to tell us about his future plans, where he's going, what he intends to do, and how he decided.
Okay, absolutely. So I visited Syracuse about 5 months ago. It was on a scholarship offer. I had to go there for 4 days and go through a series of interviews and basically explore the campus. And I knew the minute I stepped off the plane and I entered Syracuse that it was a place I was going to feel comfortable at home at, even if I did not get the scholarship, which I did not end up getting, but still. I decided to major in international relations because I've always had a love for history, politics, and government. But I find international government and international relations particularly fascinating because it's an extrapolation of the basic relationships held between local governments, state governments, even national governments, but on a greater extrapolated level. And especially given in today's age nowadays with the advent of the internet, we truly live in a global society. So it is a very exciting and compelling time to study international relations. And a big part of my decision to attend Syracuse, besides for just loving the campus, loving the community, was the fact that their international relations program is very strong and ranked. Maxwell is a fantastic school. I met with a lot of the faculty, great people, very great connections and whatnot. And yeah, that's basically what I plan on doing in the future. I also hopefully plan on double majoring in public affairs and public policy along with international relations. So, thank you.
That's very good. Thank you very much, Matthew, and best of luck to you in all your future endeavors. But right now, I would like to call upon Mayor Dan Rizzo. I thought at one time he was going to be elsewhere, but he sort of changed his little schedule to be here with us, because Dan Rizzo is very, very involved with all the pupils and the youth of the city. So he's here to say a few words. Mayor Rizzo.
Thank you. Well, Kay, thank you very much, and my thanks to the entire committee who all made this possible. Thank you very much for your service to our city, and obviously, Matt, to you, congratulations. I know from sitting in on some of the deliberations each year, and sad to say this year I was not part of those conversations, but in the past, there have been meetings I've attended to, and it is a very, very rigorous and competitive process. So clearly, you've done a terrific job to earn the support of the people here that you're standing with. So I just want to wish you the very, very best. I think Councilor Powers had made a plea to the public. We rely on contributions, donations from the public to keep this program going. So I would like to join Councilor Powers and urge all of you to support this scholarship program. It's incredible, the product and the successes that we have here in the Revere public school system. As Kay had mentioned, #1 in the entire country as far as an urban high school is concerned. #1 in the nation. Years ago, I was speaking with a school teacher that was hired, I think, 10 or 12 years ago, when the goal was to make Revere High School the #1 high school in the state. So obviously, they have accomplished that and then some. And to see somebody like Matt, and I see his family out there, you must be so proud of him, to be accepted to a school. Forget the scholarship, but to get into Syracuse is no easy feat either. That's a very, very competitive school to get into. And but I'm sure, like you've done here in high school, you're going to have the same success in college. And I just want to extend to you once again my congratulations and my best wishes for all the success that you deserve. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Rizzo. And again, I will have to say, please donate, because when you donate to youngsters, that's really an investment in our future. So let's start investing in our future. Thank you very, very much. Did someone say that they wanted the parents up here? Did the parents want to come up for a photo? What?
Yes, come.
They're camera shy. Well, okay.
Let's get a photo.
All right, thank you. Oh, stay there.
So you're going to get in the middle here?
Oh, sure. Council Powers should be close because he spoke. Mayor?
Thanks.
All right.
Are we all set?
Best of luck, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Matt.
Thank you.
You're going to start all the way. It's been great to watch you.
Congratulations. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a couple-minute recess. Okay, we're going to now bring this meeting back to order.
Mr. President,
Council Penta,
I see the mayor in the audience. Can suspension of rules and take up with the mayor's issues.
on suspension, all in favor, all opposed? So voted.
Mayor, I believe you're on 12, 13, or 14
Yeah.
on the calendar.
Madam Clerk,
Calendar item number 12, communication from the mayor relative to the fiscal year 2014 year-to-date budget report. Calendar item number 13, communication from the mayor relative to end-of-the-year transfer requests and verifications of funds for fiscal year 14. And calendar item number 14, communication from the mayor relative to the FY 2015 budget document.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Are we taking these up one at a time? Do you want me just to take, kind of touch on, because really, the first two, calendar item number 12 and 13, that have to deal with, the year-to-date figures and the transfers, I can just mention a few things about them. You received your letter that talks about the transfers. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. These are no different than in years past. Typical things that would be in there in terms of accounts that have some shortages. We also have accounts that have surpluses in them, and the auditor has identified funds to fill these deficits. So, but if you do have questions, our Director of Finance is here, as well as our City Auditor, Laura Giardella, and as I say, George Anzoni is here to answer questions as well regarding those first two items, 12 and 13. Calendar item number 14, obviously, is the budget. And if you'd like, Mr. President, I'd like to just go through it very, very quickly. Obviously, I know, as you always do, you'll refer this to Ways and Means, and then I would imagine, presumably, you'll have the department heads individually come up and ask them about their specific budgets. But I'd like to just take this opportunity to go over the work that we've done and just a general overview of the budget here this evening. And then
We certainly want you to do that, and it will go to the very capable hands of my Ways and Means Chairman, and he will deliberate on the budgets as he sees fit. I'm sure he will have all the department heads up, as is a tradition, and so forth. So why don't you give us your overview of the budget, and we'll be fine.
Well, thank you very, very much, Mr. President. And again, members of the City Council, I am pleased to submit for your consideration a proposed FY15 budget in the amount of $160,922,830. We have continued to build on our new budgeting process with the assistance from the Collins Center for Public Management at UMass. You will note additional changes and improvements in this year's budget as we continue to move in a direction that improves the way we handle and deliver city services. Every budget cycle brings with it its own unique challenges and opportunities. This budget cycle is no different. We collectively, as a governing body, have very difficult decisions to make. We can either lay off essential personnel or tap our reserves. It's really that simple. The budget clearly makes the case for the latter. We continue to prioritize funding for our core tenets of public education, public safety, economic development, and the rebuilding of our infrastructure. With respect to education, the total proposed spending for public education in FY15 is $70,130,323. We believe that this level of funding will allow us to continue to fund the many outstanding and existing programs within our public schools. Estimates for Chapter 70 funding, according to the House budget, are $50,950,075. I'm sure, as all of you are aware, the amazing award we just received by Revere High School, named not #1 in the state, but as I mentioned earlier during the scholarship presentation, #1 in the nation for academic achievement and innovation by the National Center for Urban School Transformation. This is not only a reflection on Revere High School, but on the entire school district and the city as a whole. Public safety. I've always viewed my #1 responsibility as mayor as the safety of our neighborhoods. The total proposed spending for public safety, including fire and police and inspectional services in FY15, is $20,705,136. This is an increase of approximately $1.9 million over last year. Proposed changes include $868,109 for the fire department and an increase of just over $1 million for the Revere Police Department. There are several reasons for increases in the police department. First, contract negotiations. As you all know, up to last year, every union, essentially every union, was out of contract. We were able to settle those contracts, but clearly with those contract settlements comes a financial consequence. Second was the addition of 2 additional police officers. Proposed funding will bring the complement of the police department to 96 officers. This is still a far cry from the number of officers we had back in the late 90s when the department had 117 members. We're slowly trying to rebuild given the resources that we have. In FY14, 6 officers were funded through other sources, including federal grants and school department funding. This year, that grant funding has dried up. We will only be able to fund 2 officers from these other sources this year, thereby having to take on those other 4 officers ourselves. The fire department, under the direction of Chief Doherty, continues to focus on training and increased response times. While the fire department already has amongst the best response times in the Commonwealth, Chief Doherty recognizes that the status quo does not breed excellence, so they continue to look for ways to improve. It's important to note that when I assumed office, the department was already, as I mentioned before, out of contract. After many amicable meetings, it was realized that we simply could not agree on a contract, which ultimately led to arbitration. As a result, you will see proposed funding that is consistent with the new collective bargaining agreement. This year's complement of firefighters will total 98. It's important to note that of these 98, 10 of these firefighters have been funded from other sources, mainly through a federal SAFER grant. Unfortunately, that grant, as some of you may know, is no longer available to us. We have committed to retain these officers in order to ensure adequate response times to fires and medical aid calls. We continue our efforts with our police and fire in conjunction with the town of Winthrop toward our long-awaited Regional Emergency Communications Center, which will come online as early as August, but potentially as late as this fall. With respect to economic development, we stay firmly committed to an aggressive approach towards economic development in order to diversify our commercial tax base. We've talked an awful lot about casinos over the last couple of years, but this budget and our vision for economic development is not hinging on casinos. We have to move forward as if we don't have a casino, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. As the federal and state budgets tighten, grants that have previously been available to fund positions in planning and community development and economic development have dried up as well. This, however, should not curb our efforts in fostering new growth and development. Our engineering department is working hand in hand with both our Public Works Department and Planning and Development to keep up with an ever-increasing workload. We have numerous public and private projects that are either underway or in the planning stages. We recently broke ground at Wonderland Station on a high-end luxury apartment complex with an investment in our community of nearly $43 million. We are also seeing much-needed improvements and development along Broadway, both through private and public investment. This past year, we received a Mass Works grant in the amount of $1.5 million to help continue our revitalization efforts along Broadway and throughout the city's central business district. And you will be seeing, now that we're in this new construction season, more of those dollars being put to work around this general vicinity. We also, I should say, have recently unveiled a Shirley Ave program that we are going to be undertaking to revitalize the Shirley Ave area and their business district as well. In addition, Mom's Motorcycles for Kids Only, Harley-Davidson, and Market Basket are making significant improvements to the city's overall commercial portfolio. I do feel confident that we will see Market Basket open in the very near future. We are also fully engaged in the construction of the new Staff Sergeant James J. Hill School, the new Harry Delarusso Stadium, and 3 new ball fields at St. Mary's. These projects will provide greatly needed public space for our school-age children and residents for years to come. With respect to code enforcement, we're in the final stages of the development of our 40U code enforcement program. This new local option is much like the one in place for hearings we conduct for parking citations. 40U will allow for the appeal of non-criminal disposition citations outside the normal judicial system. It will allow for late payment penalties to be imposed through the automation of the ticketing process. This will require additional staff hours in our city solicitor's budget by the addition of a new municipal hearings officer and in the inspectional service department for administrative support. But this will all be funded similar to a revolving fund through fine monies that are received. We continue to rebuild our aging infrastructure and other city assets. Keeping pace with our aging infrastructure, while a necessity, is certainly a challenge. One glaring example that we can all relate to is the harsh winter we just experienced and the potholes that we ultimately had to deal with that damaged our streets. Understanding that there are many needs in our community, my job and that of my department heads is to prioritize and multitask. Conversations with Superintendent Goodwin over the budget have led us to maintaining the current level of manpower, but add a desperately needed mechanic. For several years now, both Superintendent Goodwin and the union have made the addition of a mechanic a top priority, and we agree with their assessment. With the addition of an in-house mechanic, it is our hope that we can reduce the amount of money that we spend on the outside servicing of municipal vehicles and equipment. Also, we are planning on moving forward with a capital needs assessment and capital improvement plan in order to address the city's aging assets. The capital needs assessment plan that we are looking to undertake will address all city assets, including public buildings, equipment, infrastructure, parks, and vehicles. This is in direct contrast with the emergency funding strategies that the city has primarily used in the past. We are looking to create a long-term plan that will systematically address the needs for all municipal departments. Our Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, total non-payroll spending will, in FY15, is at $18,424,381. It's no surprise to anyone that work being done with regards to improvements to our water and sewer infrastructure is one of the more costly undertakings that we must all take on as a community. While we are appropriating resources needed to meet our obligations under the currently negotiated consent decree, we challenge the city and our ratepayers' ability to pay for the repairs that are needed to resolve nearly more than the 100 years of neglect. and all of this in an unrealistic 10-year period. Our water and sewer ratepayers should not be subjected to such draconian terms and conditions. It is my hope, and we are currently working on this, that we will see some relief from this decree in the very near future. For the purposes of this budget, rate assessments by the MWRA have increased by $354,396. I'd like to talk for a moment about how we're looking to get this budget passed and how we're looking to fund this budget. Obviously, local aid numbers, as they have in the past, have not gone up to the extent that we would like, or certainly not to the extent that we need to keep pace with the city's rising expenses. I think our budget this year is up 4.2 or 4.3%. State budget's up, I think, about 4.6%. You know, we are getting nowhere near the local aid that we need, nor do we have, at least currently, the new growth and the ability to go up under Proposition 2.5 to meet the city's needs. So in order to balance the budget this year, it is our plan to utilize $2.5 million from the FY14 free cash appropriation, which was, as you may recall, $3.2 million. We made this decision based on the various needs of the city that I've discussed earlier, including our desire to maintain strong public safety staffing levels and to continue to provide as many services to our residents as we possibly can. Clearly, it is not my goal to be required to use these reserves to balance the budget, but given our local aid numbers, as I just talked about, and our loss of close to $1 million by way of losing Thrifty Rent-A-Car, we see no other viable alternative. In many ways, this is the reason we established the Rainy Day Fund, so we can continue to provide essential services to our taxpayers that they so deserve. Other cities and towns, by way of comparison, are facing similar situations. In FY14, Malden faced an $8 million deficit. They used roughly $5 million of one-time funds to bridge the deficit. And, in addition, the proposal incorporated $1 million of proceeds for the sale of a school building, which was originally earmarked for repairs, and another $2.9 million was drawn from surplus funds that normally would have gone into the city's stabilization account. Currently, in FY15, Malden is downsizing more than 30 positions, which I have to believe is going to have an impact on services. Everett in FY14 faced a $2.8 million deficit between what was authorized for school spending and what had been appropriated. To close that gap, they had to come up with an additional $1.1 million in new funding for schools, and the school department had to identify $1.6 million in spending cuts. That additional funding was found in the city's stabilization fund at $1.1 million in order to ensure sufficient funding. In Brockton, in FY14, they used $2 million in stabilization and $500,000 in free cash to balance their budget. Danvers in FY14, and now in this year's budget, is using $1.75 million in reserves to balance their budget. Now, I could go on and on and on about how other cities and towns are using stabilization and reserves to balance their budget. And you have a very, very clear choice. Like I started off my comments by saying, you can cut personnel, or we can try to, get through this, but with the funds that we have identified. I think it's a very good budget. It's keeping, again, with our core values as a community. I think our future is extremely bright in spite of the fact that expenses do go up, and obviously I'm sure you all can relate to collective bargaining when those, the impact that can have on a budget. So I'm here to answer any questions. I just want to, before I close, I want to just conclude by saying how much I appreciate the hard work and the cooperation that we receive from all of our department heads. I can't say enough about the long hours, the time and effort that was put forth by our entire finance department, led by our Director of Finance, George Anzoni, and Auditor Laurie Giardella. Their tireless work ensured that this budget was submitted in a timely fashion. We continue to work towards receiving accreditation by the Government Finance Officers Association for excellence in public budgeting. We are more than halfway towards receiving this award. I look forward to working with the Council over the coming weeks to enact the proposed FY15 budget and spending plan for municipal operations. I'm here to answer any questions as well as members of my finance team.
And thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Council Penta?
Well, Mr. President, I sat with the clerk today. We went over the temporary schedule. I'm hoping to have all the hearings done by June 16th. So we'll have a very aggressive department head meetings throughout 3 or 4 different days, and then finalize it on the last day. Any cuts that any councilor on the committee, off the committee, wants to submit before we submit our final cuts and everything in the budget. The only one question I do have is, there's a lot of stuff on Ways and Means still now, and, you know, this is usually a formality. It is a formality. I don't know why I say usually is. I see, you know, the item number 13, the transfer request. You know, it's not increasing anything on the taxpayer. It's moving some funds where they had a surplus into where the deficits are. So I would ask actually to take that up tonight.
If
so
I could stop you, I had intended to ask for a vote on the transfers tonight. However,
well, my point is, if we're going to vote on it tonight, which I would ask to do it, I want to let the council know the mayor is here to answer any questions on the transfer. So,
yeah. Okay, that's what we'll do here. We're about to vote on the transfers. So what we'll do is, if there's any particular questions on the transfers, before we start asking the mayor any questions on his budget presentation. So that's how we'll take this, if everybody's in agreement.
very good.
Okay. Councilor Regal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I'll ask a question that refers to the transfers, but is also in reference to the 15 budget. We have in the packet of transfers, we have a fund balance detail sheet. I was wondering if we could have kind of a revenue breakdown for fiscal year 15 that would look similar to that, so we could see what revenue is coming from where. I think half of a budget ends up being, you know, you have your expenditures, but you also have revenue, and I didn't see anything detailed in terms of revenue. So I think it would be helpful to have a projection for fund balances for fiscal year 15. Thank you.
Do you want to take that? Do you want the director to take that, or?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that we can, if that hasn't been provided, you know, year-to-date revenues in those accounts, I'm sure that's easy enough to get.
Yeah,
so
okay.
It wouldn't be year-to-date. It would be projected for the next year, for 15.
Oh, projected revenues?
Yeah.
I'm sure the budget's based on projected revenue, isn't it?
Yeah, we can provide that.
Okay.
We had to do that when we put the budget together, so yeah, we can absolutely get you that information.
No questions. Okay. On the transfers. I understand that. Madam Clerk.
Shall the City Council approve the following transfers? $15,000 from the Collector Treasurer's Workers' Compensation account, $31,500 from the Collector Treasurer Bonded Debt Interest account, $45,000 from the DPW Rubbish Removal account, $90,000 from the Fire Lieutenant Regular Salary account, $50,000 from the Fire Permanent Salaries account, $25,000 from Fire Additional Differential account, $20,000 from the Fire Medical Expense account, $30,000 from the Police Salary Holiday Pay account, $20,000 from the Police Medical Expense account, $250,000 from the Police Patrol Officer Salary account, $7,000 from the Police Computer Services account, $12,300 from the Planning and Community Development Permanent Salaries Account, $5,000 from the Elder Affairs Additional Differential Account, $11,500 from the Elder Affairs Permanent Salaries Account, $65,000 from the Veterans Affairs Recreational Programs Account, $20,000 from the Water and Sewer Department Labor Force Salaries Account, $40,000 from the Water Sewer Enterprise Water Labor Force Salaries Account, and $23,000 from the Water Sewer Enterprise Billing for the MWRA Sewer Assessment Account. And this is going to $65,000 to the Auditor Insurance Account, $1,500 to the Auditor Overtime Account, $30,000 to the Collector Treasurer Workers' Compensation Medical Account, $15,000 to the DPW Traffic Signal Repair Account, $30,000 to the DPW Contracted Painting Account, $15,100 to the Elder Affairs Salary Account, $1,400 to the Elder Affairs Educational Incentive Account, $170,000 to the Fire Salary Overtime Account, $15,000 to the Fire Building Maintenance and Repair Account, $15,000 to the Mayor Labor Relations Account, $300,000 to the Police Other Salaries Court Overtime Account, $7,000 to the Police Grant Writer Account, $12,300 to the Planning and Community Development Sick Leave Buyback Account, $20,000 to the Water Sewer Department Overtime Account, $40,000 to the Water Sewer Enterprise Water Overtime Account, and $23,000 to the Water Enterprise Water Billing Overtime Account. Councilor Rigo.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Gino.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Haas. Yes. Councilor Morabito.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Penta.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Reardon.
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Zambudo.
Yes.
Yes. The transfers have been approved.
Mr. President,
Council Penta.
I probably should have said it before the vote, but I'd just be remiss. The city auditor is here, and I want to thank her for all her work. Just so the people know, all the transfers, and the reason why it's so long, came from one account to another, and it's almost out of the same accounts. But I want to credit her for all the hard work she had to do. I mean, at the end of the year, I'm sure different times she has a lot of more effort and work put in from the finance director. He knows, but Laurie, I want to thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to get accolades once in a while. Okay, does anybody have any questions for the mayor? I know that we're about to enter into Ways and Means meetings that are going to go through every inch of this budget, but if anybody has any questions on the mayor's presentation. Councilor Powers.
Yeah, I just have one question, Mr. Mayor, and you mentioned it, so I'm going to ask the question. You mentioned the $1 million a year we're losing from Thrifty. Now, when Thrifty originally started over at the highway there on the East Boston line, they started as a car rental agency, and the parking of vehicles on that property was, I believe, and Councilor Haas would know this, as an accessory use to the, is that correct? Yeah. And I'm just wondering where they're going to be parking cars there. Have we sat down, or has our legal department sat down with them to negotiate some sort of remuneration for the city of Revere in lieu of the $1 million we're going to lose from the car rental?
Yeah. I'll let my director of finance answer that.
We've had discussions, myself and the chairman of the Board of Assessors, with Thrifty. As far as any type of, there was originally, once we heard that Thrifty was moving from Revere to the airport, there was a motion made by the then mayor and the city council to try to continue getting our surcharge. So that didn't occur. They said that was illegal. But however, as we're discussing with them now, is that what exactly can we get from them? And it's not going to be anywhere in the area of what we were getting before, because we're receiving not only the excise tax, we're also receiving the surcharge. And the surcharge was approximately $600,000-700,000 a year, as you know. And the other part of it too is that we were receiving probably the similar amount in vehicle excise taxes. So to get up to that level, but we took the biggest hit ever on that. This was a $1.2 million hit just in this budget alone. But next year it'll be at least even though. So now we have that already in a base budget.
No, I understand that, but I would think that
We're in discussion.
in lieu of that money, we should be looking for some remuneration for the parking of those vehicles over there, because that certainly is a big moneymaker for them.
Well, we're in the midst of doing that with, as again I said, the chairman of the board, Andy Ryerson, and myself, talking about that. So that's a discussion.
Okay, you'll keep the council informed.
I'll keep the council involved.
Thank you very much.
If I can jump in for a second on that, I think that there has to be a good case to, as an old colleague of mine, Councilor Jordan used to always say, the income approach to value. And there's a case to be made that there's no accessory use for parking cars unless we say there's an accessory use if they're not renting cars. So, I mean, they would have never got that accessory use had we not been getting such a value for them being there. So there is a legal case. I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on TV. And I think that, you know, there's certainly a case to be made that you don't have an accessory use unless you want to make us whole for, and as former Councilor Jordan used to always say, let's go after the income approach to value on that property. And so let's hope that's part of your negotiations. Not that I'm trying to micromanage in any way. Thank you. Councilor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just received the budget Friday night, and I just received the amendments yesterday, or this morning, matter of fact. In reviewing it and listening to what you said, Mr. Mayor, we are not adding any employees to our DPW. We are paying, because the grant has expired, to 10 firemen. I want to know within your budget if there's any way you could add to our DPW staffing, because without question, they're out straight. It takes a long time to get responses from them, and they're out there working their butts off every day. And I was wondering if there's any way to the meetings that Richard's going to have, if we could look at addressing that segment of the budget.
I definitely share your desire to want to add staffing down there. We are actually looking to add a new staff member to the DPW. It would be
The mechanic.
a mechanic.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's not going to, obviously the mechanic's not going to be out filling potholes, but he is going to go, or that person is going to go a long way in making sure that the turnaround on vehicles that may be disabled or, you know, in need of some sort of repairs will be turned around that much quicker than to have to send them out. So, you know, it's our hope that while not directly adding staffing to the DPW in terms of traditional manpower, it's our hope that by having, because oftentimes they can't do their job because they have equipment or they have vehicles that are out of service. If you can approve the mechanic, we feel as though that mechanic is going to be able to service vehicles in a way that can turn that around quicker than if we were to send them out and, you know, hopefully get people back in those vehicles to do more work. You know, we had to kind of, I mean, we had to make decisions, you know, where do we most, I mean, we have an awful lot of needs. And so, you know, as I talked about, we added a couple of police officers. We're trying, back when you were mayor, I think you had 117 police officers. When I took over, I think we had 90, you know, so we're trying to rebuild that because, it's, I think we all share the desire to have a very strong police presence out there. And with a growing population, I mean, you could argue that with 117 police officers back in the early 90s, and now you fast forward, you got 10,000 more people living in the city, and we have far less police.
Right.
So I had to prioritize, and Chief Caffarelli actually asked for 4. We come up with 2. So I think as you start to go through the budget, and as you said, you just received it, so you obviously haven't had a chance to go through it all. We're trying to meet the various needs throughout all municipal departments in a way that is going to, we think, is going to make us operate more efficiently.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that could happen potentially in the next 90 days. Who knows? That could turn this whole process right around and allow me to put numerous people on.
Right.
So, but for now, that's...
Yeah, the only reason I brought it up, okay, we had Donnie up, earlier this evening, and it's hard to work with a staff after the winter we had. It was horrendous, right? Everyone's complaining about potholes. He's doing the best he can with the available staff. He's got 3 people in that department, and 3 people is not adequate, okay? That's all. I just want to make the statement, because we've level funded it, and it's not going to go anywhere. I did the same when I was there. I may have had 117 police officers, okay, but I had 45, whatever it was, DPW workers, all right? It goes down. Now the priorities is public safety, okay, without question. And I understand what you're doing, but when we get together with Richard, we may come up with some strong recommendations.
Well, and listen, Councilor, your point is absolutely well taken. If I could add bodies, I absolutely would. But the other thing that happens too, and if you think about it, there's always that city share of public education. Look how much that, I don't know what public education what that portion was, back 10, 15 years ago was. But the portion that the city has to kick in now is pretty significant, as compared to years past. So, we're always trying to find ways to increase our level of services. There's no question. I share your frustration and I share your desire to add manpower, and we're going to continue to try to look for that. As I said before, we anticipate new growth regardless of what goes forward over at Suffolk Downs. There's an awful lot of opportunity and interest in this city right now, and we're trying to take advantage of it before that curve starts to go down the other way. This city seems to have always missed. We come right on the verge of some real solid economic development projects, and then it seems as though the economy tanks and the city unfortunately loses out. So right now, we want to take advantage as we're going in this direction. And, hopefully this time next year, I can stand before you and say, this is how much we have in new growth now. And I'd be asking you, can I add 2 or 3 more bodies to the DPW?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Rigo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to follow up on that, for this budget, how much in new growth have we projected, or how much of an increase in new growth have we projected?
The new growth, 525,000. Yeah, I have it here somewhere.
So 525,000 more than last year, or total?
In new growth.
In new growth, total. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Financial Director. And we'll go back to the regular order of business, I believe.
Calendar item number 2, hearing called is ordered on a proposed loan order for CW SRF Planning Project number 3908 in the amount of $1.2 million for field investigations, illicit discharge detection and elimination, SSES Phase 6 investigations, and supplemental CWMP-CSMP services.
Proponents, people in favor of this proposal.
Mr. President, members of the council,
Mr. Mayor.
I'm just going to stand here as a proponent. I did speak on this when I was requesting the public hearing, so I won't rehash all of my reasons why I do support these loan orders, but safe to say each and every one of these loan orders that you're going to hold this public hearing for here tonight, I'm not only in favor of, but it is money that is going to help us stay in compliance with our consent decree. You should know that we are making headway. We are in full swing now of working on renegotiating these terms on the consent decree. I feel cautiously optimistic that we will be able to lighten the load that our ratepayers are currently bearing with regards to this 10-year consent decree that was signed. And so if we can do that, it's something that we're going to try to do. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Button, but I am a proponent for this loan order.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Button.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Button with CDM Smith, offices at 50 Hampshire Street in Cambridge, Mass. I'm joined tonight by my colleague, John Doherty. We're here to present information at the mayor's request, a status update of all the compliance work that has been done since we started the EPA program, and then give you some information in terms of what we're planning for this coming year and the 3 loan orders that are before the council. After the public hearing, I think we'll be providing some additional information to the Ways and Means Committee, and I've been working with the city auditor to prepare that information. Just before we get started, I've handed you all a bound copy of the presentation, so you'll have the information for your records. And I've also handed you a series of maps. Those maps show the 4 years of construction that has or is being completed throughout the city, as well as an individual map for each one of the wards showing the work that's been done in specific wards for all the councilors, so that you'll have an idea on what's been done over the years in your various portions of the city. So with that, I'll get started real quickly. Again, I want to give you an overview of the consent decree itself, the program management responsibilities that CDM Smith has been undertaking, update you on the investigations, the construction projects, and the GIS work we've been doing, provide you some information on the comprehensive planning and reporting that we provided to EPA, our ongoing work with some of your neighboring communities, the MWRA, Mass DOT, DCR, and some other work that we've been doing on operation and maintenance with the DPW and with you folks as counselors. And then lastly, we'll give you an update on the SRF program. Just for a quick history for those of you who are new to the council and for those in the public watching at home, the first consent decree work began really in 2005 when EPA issued a request for information to the city of Revere. The city provided a tremendous amount of information and responses to EPA and Mass DEP, and that information and those responses became the basis of the administrative consent order that was issued in April of 2007. After the administrative order was in place, the city began a number of items that I'll talk about later to comply with that order, and the Department of Justice prepared and demanded a draft consent decree in 2010. After almost 2 years of negotiation with DOJ, EPA, and Mass DEP, the city entered into that consent decree and will outline the responsibilities that the city has under the decree. The primary issues for the consent decree were related to water quality. It's a national priority for EPA and Department of Justice to address sanitary sewer overflows, or SSOs, as well as to deal with illicit discharge detection and elimination. They are major public health issues in terms of affecting the public health and the environment, and the compliance with the requirements is mandated by the Federal Clean Water Act of the 70s. These two pictures are actually, on the left-hand side is an SSO occurring in North Revere, and the picture on the right-hand side is illicit discharge coming out of a storm drain system. I'm not exactly sure of that location. In April of 2007, again, the city had to do a bunch of work under the administrative order. There were illicit discharge investigations. There was a CMOM assessment and corrective action plan, the development of the GIS system that was used to create all these maps that you folks have in front of you, and for our work, working with the city to plan was a critical element of this. The field programs to look for infiltration and inflow as well as other problems in the city system, the hydraulic modeling and capacity assessment, and the reporting and compliance requirements of the administrative order, which, as the consent decree was put in place, became a duplication. As a result of the city's aggressive efforts to make all these compliance things achieved, we're working now with the mayor's office and the city's attorneys at Nutter McLennan to actually complete the administrative order and get the city released from the administrative order so that that'll be behind us, as the mayor alluded to earlier. In 2010, the consent decree negotiations began, and the consent decree was a step above and beyond the issues in the administrative order. It required significant investment and investigations in the balance of the city, and it required that all of the corrective actions be completed in a 10-year period, that would end in 2022. In addition, there was significant reporting and compliance. This document that I have before me is actually one of 9 6-month compliance reports every 6 months that we submit to EPA to document everything that the city is actually doing to comply with the consent decree and the administrative order. And through all this, we've been working hand in hand with multiple city departments, the obvious in public works, engineering, community development, but also with the director of finance, with the auditor, with the city clerk's office. We've been working with just about every department, the building inspector, numerous city departments, and they've all been tremendously supportive of this effort. Again, Revere, in response to the consent decree, has engaged CDM Smith as the city's program manager. You've done a tremendous amount of compliance efforts to date, and as I just showed you, you're tracking and reporting to that to EPA and Mass DEP as required. We've completed roughly 6 years' worth of field investigations and data, and you'll see some details on that in a few minutes. We've done 4 years' worth of major construction programs that have included immediate corrective actions as well as rehab throughout the city. We've also prepared and submitted to EPA and DOJ the Comprehensive Sewer and Drainage Capital Improvement Plan. This document that I brought right here was prepared and submitted to EPA and DOJ back in December, and it forms the basis for the consent decree compliance effort. It lays out all the programs, the construction, the investigations, and the things that the city needs to do. In addition, as I said before, we've been continuing to work with the MWRA as well as other city and state agencies to look at their infrastructure within the city. When we were before Ways and Means last week, we talked a little bit about things with DCR and with Mass DOT in terms of helping maintain the drainage infrastructure that we believe is really important. We've continued to work with EPA and Mass DEP through the mayor's office and working with the city attorneys. And the city, again, has made a strong commitment of their own staff and your own in-house limited resources. Program management, quickly, is a process of managing several related projects. As many of you know, there are multiple investigations, construction projects, planning, reporting, and things that are going on throughout the city during this roughly 15-year period. Our role is to help the city navigate all of these different requirements, make sure that they're all done appropriately and that the deadlines and the submittal requirements are maintained. We work with the city to help provide technical resources and to help satisfy funding and other things that are necessary to meet your compliance requirements. Briefly, one of the very first things we did was update the city's GIS system. Without this, we would not have been able to do any of the work that we've been doing to date. We've taken, as you can see in the insert, old paper maps that were stored at a variety of locations, and we've put them into a very complex database that allows us to do a lot of data evaluation and presentation. That database includes 3,200 record plans, more than 3 decades of reports that existed in the city planner and engineer's offices, 98 miles of sewer, 2,438 sewer manholes have all been integrated into the database, and we've been able to collect and maintain and evaluate information. Likewise, in the city's stormwater drainage system, about 71 miles of piping, 1,060 manholes, and 3,288 catch basins have all been cataloged and entered into the database. In addition, we've done the same for the city's water system. And this information is continuously updated and validated. Our field investigations provides us new information. Work that the DPW does provides new information. Work that the engineering department does provides new information. And that information is continuously integrated and updated in the GIS system. Just quickly, it also supports multiple city departments and other projects. We've been using the GIS to evaluate some of the development projects that the mayor is looking at. We've used it for other parks planning projects. The GIS has been a very important tool in the city. In addition, in 2009, I believe it was, we completed the hydraulic model and capacity assessment. The map on the right, all the blue lines, show the major infrastructure sewer collection pipes in the city greater than 10 inches in diameter, and the little red dots represent potential locations where sewage or sanitary sewer overflows could pop out of the city's pipes. The picture on the left-hand side is an SSO down in the Goldie Street area that was eliminated by some of the early construction work that we've done. And really, this hydraulic model helps us to plan for and evaluate how the system performs so that you can make the corrections that are necessary, and it also allows you to look at regional conditions and potential increases in development within the city. It's a very, very powerful tool. The next map is a map that shows the investigations that have been done throughout the city. So far, we've completed 4 years of investigations, and we're in the 5th year right now with a final report that's going to be due in December of 2014. In addition, we've been working to identify with DPW numerous locations of illicit discharge throughout the city that have been corrected by DPW. We've begun the first phases of the sump pump program, and we've continued to plan for additional investigations. Each year, it's very important to do a percentage of the investigation so that the next year you'll have projects to do construction. You can't do all the investigations up front and then do 10 years worth of construction because conditions change. So you need to have the most up-to-date information, and that's why we do these on an annual basis. And another important thing to keep in mind is the investigations have been a tremendous asset to the Department of Public Works operation and maintenance efforts. Through our investigations of a little over 40% of the city, we've actually cleaned 40% of the city's sewers, and we've lined a significant portion of that. So we're helping to maintain the system better for DPW as part of the work that we're doing. Just to give you an idea of the types of things that we're looking at and the types of investigations that you would do, this slide that shows a section through a home and through the roadway shows sewer, storm drainage connections in the street, manholes, catch basins, connections from the house, roof leaders, sump pumps, that type of thing. And what it does is it shows you the types of investigations that are necessary in order to document those conditions. As an example, in the sanitary sewer main, things like dye testing, flow monitoring, closed-circuit television inspections, and other sonar studies inside the pipes are done to find the cracks and to find the leaks and to find the types of problems that we've been finding. Each one of these SSES investigations allows us to do this on an annual basis in various locations. Here, the next photo, just give you an idea of some of the pictures and some of the conditions that we've been finding. Many folks will see the trucks, National Water Main and Situform have been the companies that have been working, Green Mountain Pipeline Services. There's 3 or 4 vendors that have been working in the city. The men will go down into the system. They'll do investigations in the manholes. They'll put cameras in the sewers looking for problems. The photo in the top center is of the old interceptor on American Legion Highway before we did the lining in the very first year. and you can see all the water that's pouring in through the cracks in the pipes. That infiltration into the city sanitary system is a major problem and one we're working very hard to correct. In some of the other pictures, you can see cracked drainage pipes and manholes where, when you have flooding conditions, sewage can run out into the marshes and into the stormwater channels and create problems. In the bottom left-hand corner behind the minivan, you'll see a catch basin smoking. We actually pumped smoke into the city's sewer system and look for it to come out of the ground. The problem there is when it rains, all the water would go into that catch basin, and that would take away capacity for sanitary sewage. So that's really important. And even something as simple as the crack in the manhole frame and cover, if that's located in a depressed area, then any ponded water in that area will drain right into your sewer system over time. So all of these things have been evaluated as part of our work to date. In addition, as I stated before, we've done a tremendous amount of cleaning in the city's system. Up on the upper photos on the right show investigations out on the Parkway, and the photo next to the tree, you can see the pieces of brick and concrete and other debris that were cleaned out of the bottom of the sewers as part of the work that we did before we went in and did the lining. The bottom two photos show problems that we found. I believe one of them was on Winthrop Ave, the collapse, as well as a 2x4 jammed across the pipe. We found bicycles jammed in the sewer system, wood, bricks, just about anything you can think of that can get down inside a manhole we've found in the system as part of our investigations. In addition, we've been looking at the stormwater system. Here's some photos of wastewater on the upper left-hand corner coming out a storm drain pipe. You can see the sewer manhole with the green dye is dye testing, where we'll go into a building and we'll test the various connections and see where the dye comes out into the sewer system or into the stormwater system, depending on where it's connected. You'll also see these drainage culverts that exist throughout the city under the various highways and railroad tracks and those types of things. We've put a number of gauges on those throughout the city to monitor elevations within the stormwater system as a way of helping to determine where to focus our improvements most effectively. In the bottom photos, you'll see the Martin Street Tide Gate, and on the bottom right, you'll see the city's pump that's also set up at the Martin Street Tide Gate during storm events. That's one of the key areas that we're looking to focus on over the next year to two, as I said to you a couple weeks ago. And then in the center, there are numerous locations throughout the city where catch basins are just full to the rim. So even if there is a drainage system in place, there's nowhere for the water to go because those systems require extensive cleaning and rehab as well. Lastly, the sump pump amnesty program. In speaking with several folks in the city, including the DPW director, this has been a key priority and a key focus area. There's roughly 12,000 locations within the city, homes and businesses. We've sent out a mailer, that pink flyer that many of you have seen before, in the water bills in 3 different languages, trying to do outreach to the community to try to make them aware of the sump pump program. Most importantly, the December 31st, 2015 deadline, which they need to pay attention to and sign up for. There's a tremendous amount of information on the city's website and a list of, I think it was 174 that had signed up as of last week, and where you stand in terms of being investigated or redirected. It's really important for the homeowners because in order to get this amount of flow out of the city's sewer system, the city is helping homeowners, and it's important that they're aware of that. Roughly 2/3, so 2 out of every 3 houses that we've gone to have had problem sumps in them with the ones that we've investigated so far. The photos that you see here are actually of a sump pump that was properly redirected as part of some of the work we've done to date. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see somebody cut a hole in the floor in their basement. They sunk a 5-gallon bucket in the hole, packed stone around it, put a small pump into it, and in the center photo where you see the sink, you'll see the duct tape wrapped around the washing machine connection. That sump pump was actually connected right in where the washing machine would be, and all of that groundwater was going into your sanitary sewer system. The proper connection, which you can see in the third photo, closest to the paper copies, shows a 2-inch hard pipe coming out of the sump pump. It goes up the wall of the basement and out the window and directs that groundwater, splashes it on the outside of the property. So that's a proper sump pump connection, and this just happened to illustrate that location where we've already made that correction. Again, getting back to the GIS system, we've used the GIS as a tool in order to help us understand how a problem in a sewer system relates to a problem in a storm drain system, relates to sump pumps, and we've used the GIS for various things in order to show this information all in one location. All the hatched properties that you see on this map are suspect locations for sump pumps or other inflow problems, and the pipes that you see highlighted in yellow and various colors are pipes that we've either done or are in the process of doing rehabilitation on. So, in summary, in terms of the field investigation, there are roughly 98 miles of sewers in Revere. We've done a number of flow metering efforts, I think 3 at this point in time, temporary as well as permanent meters that were just installed to help us get a real-time understanding of what's happening. We've done flow isolation in a little more than 80% of the entire system, smoke testing in 485,000 linear feet, and most importantly, CCTV inspection in 220,000 feet. That's not only inspection, but that's cleaning, and you can see that's almost 50% of the city's entire system. So that's been a tremendous asset. This map that shows up on the slide here, all those areas that are highlighted with the thicker pink are actually areas where we've gone in and done cleanings as part of our investigation work. We've looked in manholes, and we've looked at other spot locations, outfalls, that type of thing. Similar in the drainage system, we've completed a number of different investigations. In addition to the investigations, we've been using technology to help the city collect real-time information to help improve the performance. The 2 photos on the upper column are the smart covers that we put in the city, and we've got about 26 of those, I believe, around the city. And what they do is every time it rains, they monitor the depth of sewage in the city's entire system. Myself, the city engineer, and others in the DPW get a series of texts and email notifications when it gets to certain alarm thresholds. In addition, in the bottom right-hand corner at the sewer manhole, you can see a permanent meter, a temporary meter that was installed to get some flow information. A lot of this stuff is below the ground, and folks don't realize that it's really there, but we're able to collect information from throughout the city. And then the photo, the blow-up that you see, is of a salinity meter. So in one of the sewers where we suspect that there's a high volume of groundwater out near the ocean that's actually entering into the sewer system, we're measuring the salt content in that sewage flow to look to see where the water itself is coming from. And you can see that it's relatively clear, so a lot of indication there that we've got extraneous flow that's not supposed to be there, not the grayer sewage that should be. Excuse me. In addition to having these automated warning systems, we've also put, as I said before, information in the city's drainage system so that we can monitor storm elevations, we can monitor tide cycles. The chart that you see is related to the Oak Island Marsh, where the city did a salt marsh restoration project, and we're monitoring the elevation of salt water within the marsh as part of that compliance. You can also see the new automated self-regulating tide gate that was put in Oak Island. We have what's called a mission system that provides us with 24-hour-a-day information that we can log on to the website to look at how that system is operating. This shows it with another one of the city's pumps set up to pump out water during a storm event. But we're able to track all this information so that when we're making presentations to the federal and state regulators or to the state agencies, we're doing it with facts and real information and not supposition. And I think that's been a tremendous benefit. These maps also show some of the water elevation information in the sewer. In the bottom left in that chart, you can see the spike in the graph. That's where water elevations or elevations within the sewer jump up with rainfall or other events. We're able to document that for many, many different types of storms. And the GIS map just gives you an idea of where some of these meters and systems are located throughout the city. Now on to the summary of construction work. I also brought a big map with me, as well as handing you folks all of those individual maps. As I said before, we've done 4 years, 3 years worth of construction, and we're in our 4th year right now. The first 2 years were early action projects where we fixed sort of the worst problems that we found in our early investigations. Key among that was the interceptor lining. Many of you will remember the pipes that were set up in the Parkway and on Route 60 when we were doing bypass pumping for the sewer lining project. And again, we did the Goldie Street pump station replacements and new sewers. In Phase 2, in the spring or summer of 2012, we did another series of sewer improvements or lining of the sewers throughout the city. We did inflow removal. And on the maps, you'll see colored dots that show the inflow sources and the year that they were removed. And under that particular year, the Point of Pines pump station was also replaced. Last year, we continued with the sewer lining in order to deal with the integrity and the infiltration issues that I showed you previously. We did a number of inflow removals throughout the city, and there's a package currently under construction for rehabilitation of, I believe, 6 pump stations. That was last year's Phase 3 construction. This year, for Phase 4, we've already begun the investigations for this year's lining program. In addition to the lining on sort of residential streets, we're going to be doing a major portion of the interceptor, basically upstream from where we stopped in Phase 1, all the way through the back of Northgate and roughly over to the Copeland Circle area. So from effectively the church all the way up to Copeland Circle, the main interceptor will be lined. And again, on the maps, you can see other locations that will be lined during the coming year. There's an inflow source that we've identified that basically it's a low point where nowhere else for the water to go other than into the city's sanitary sewer system. There's a new stormwater pump station that's going to be constructed, and that flow will go to the stormwater system where it's supposed to. In addition, we've got some problems where pipes were installed and sloped incorrectly. We're going to be correcting those pipes and putting in a new pump station. That will eliminate a known SSO problem that we're having, and we will be beginning the first wholesale sump pump redirection. As we said when we were here a couple weeks ago, we're trying to package the sump pumps roughly in groups of 100 so that we can efficiently get out and get as many removed at one time as possible. In terms of the lining work, again, I don't think people realize the volume of work that's been done throughout the city because so much of it happens below grade. The liners are basically pulled from one manhole to the other out of the back of a box truck and cured or expanded in place to deal with the cracks and the problems you can see in this particular graphic. And many folks have probably seen these trucks lined up throughout the city, again, in situ form. National Water Main Cleaning, Green Mountain Pipeline have been the companies to date that have been doing the work. In the upper left, it's some of the work that we did on the main interceptor. In the center, I believe that's Park Ave and some work that was done last summer. And then you can also see pieces of the liner. I previously brought some pieces of liner in for you folks to see in the past. But effectively what happens is a brand new pipe is installed within the city's existing piping system without digging up the entire roadway. With respect to the planning and capital improvements, again, we submitted the comprehensive plan and the report that I showed you earlier. Working with the various city departments, we've laid out a schedule for the early years of the consent decree compliance, where we'll be doing improvements in the wastewater collection system, the lining and the spot repairs and the things I just spoke about. We'll be doing rehabilitation and replacement of various sewer and stormwater pump stations. In the coming years, wastewater capacity improvements, i.e. making pipes bigger in certain areas where the pipes may be not big enough now, and or creating pipes that will allow storage within the ground. Those will be things that will be required. and then there will be improvements to the stormwater system, tide gates, pumping stations, addition of stormwater piping. There are several areas of the city where there actually isn't a stormwater system now, and we will need to work with the city to install one. And then, as the mayor said earlier, we are working with the EPA and the city's attorneys to work to extend the compliance schedule beyond the 10 years that were originally provided in the consent decree. Just briefly on some of the regional issues, much of what happens in Revere is impacted by regional conditions, whether it's with the MWRA system and flows from neighboring communities, whether it's with the drainage system and highways that are cutting through the city. There's a number of things that are impacted by state agencies in addition to the city's infrastructure. We're continuing to work with a multitude of those agencies to address them and to get the agencies to invest in their infrastructure so that the city isn't footing the bill for things that are beyond their control. Lastly, what I wanted to touch on is the importance of operation and maintenance. The mayor was speaking earlier in the budget in terms of providing the resources for DPW. After we get all these improvements done, it's important to make sure that not only DPW but engineering have the technical resources, the manpower, and the equipment to maintain and to run the systems. Specialty equipment, pump trucks, that type of thing are all going to be important. And in addition to that, making sure that we're enforcing the regulations that are in place now, things like the sump pump requirements and other things that are on the books. When the amnesty program is over, as some of the councilors said, we need to make sure that we're really enforcing the requirements and making sure that the problems don't continue. Which then leads us to the State Revolving Loan Fund program, or the SRF program. Annually, the SRF program provides the city with funding or with the opportunity to obtain funding to comply with the requirements of the Clean Water Act. The SRF program provides long-term funding with low rates up to 30 years for improvements in the wastewater system. Principal forgiveness over the past several years has been a key issue for the city. Because of median household income and other considerations, you qualify for environmental justice credits, and this year we also qualified for green energy credits. And what happens is we've gotten hundreds of thousands of dollars in principal forgiveness, where effectively they're providing zero interest loans and or they're crediting the city back with a portion of it as a grant. And that's been very, very helpful to the city in terms of getting us through what we've needed to do to date. The planning efforts have been, or the planning funding is necessary to provide resources for the investigations that we talked about. We've prioritized these investigations, so we've started in the worst of the worst areas, and we're working down the list, and that list is coordinated with the requirements that were presented to EPA and DOJ in our consent decree response. The planning grants have provided money for development of the GIS, as well as for ongoing technical support, training, equipment, updates, those types of things. They've provided for specialty equipment here in City Hall and for that the DPW uses. And then lastly, on the construction side, the CWSRF has provided money for all the projects that I spoke about earlier. The loan orders that are before you tonight, there are 3. 2 of them are for planning. They'll provide monies for additional field investigations and illicit discharge detection. They'll provide support for the GIS system and the hydraulic modeling, and they'll allow us to continue with the inflow and sump pump removal efforts. That's the 2 planning authorizations that are before you. The second is the construction authorization, and that will provide funding for targeted improvements, lining, spot repairs, new pipe, for inflow, sump pump, pump station, IDDE, and stormwater improvements in various areas throughout the city. Here's some information for the folks at home with respect to contacts within the city, as well as my contact information in my office in Cambridge and here in Broadway if there are any questions.
Well, Mr. President, just a point of information.
State your point, Council Penta.
Are we on the public hearings? Or are we on a presentation?
This is a public hearing.
Okay, so we're going to open, so we didn't just address all 3 of these at once?
Excuse me?
these items, do we address all three at once? I mean, I thought, you go proponents, opponents, well, I'm just asking.
I can speak to that. What we tried to do, Councilor, was just do one presentation that applies to all three, and I just summarized them. My expectation is there's separate public hearings for each of them individually. The presentation was just to give you an idea of the whole program.
No, I have no problem with that, because I've been waiting for a presentation on this, and even though I can't see this, I mean, I got a half an eye, I need 18 magnifying glasses to see this when I go home. I will get my big magnifying glass out and I will look at it, but
we'll get you a big one too that you can see.
No, that's fine. Like I said, I'll look at that later, but we'll stick to the public hearing evidently. Okay, thank you.
The other two will go very quickly. We have to formally go through them. Give me a break. All right, come on. Just relax. You want to finish this presentation? Okay.
Councilor, I have given you all the information and the updates
Great.
that I have. I'm happy to answer any questions
All
at
right,
your pleasure.
well, we're going to close this side of the hearing. Now, any opponents, people opposed to this proposal? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side of the hearing. Any city councilors? Councilor Morabito.
I would like to commend you on these detailed maps. I came to you last week and explained how this is an intricate project, and it's been going on for a while, and that detailing the streets of what you have done and what is not complete yet would be very helpful. So I commend you on these details. You went above and beyond my expectations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Morabito. Councilor Reardon.
Thank you, Mr. President. And then I think just for the edification of the public that are watching this, because I mean, your presentation was great, it was detailed, but I think half the people watching probably fell asleep about halfway through. So just for that edification, I have some questions that I think I know the answers to, but I'll try to put them in layman's terms. We have two essential problems with our drainage system and sewer system in this city. And one is that we get too much drainage going into the sewage, and we have too much, and thereby we're paying way too much to have the sewage cleaned, as it affects the pockets of the people who live in this city and ratepayers, and what we're trying to eliminate down the road. Now, as I recall when we first started doing this, you gave us, to me, what I thought was an incredible statistic, and that was, and I don't remember what it was, but the amount of drainage that actually ends up in our sewage system, for instance, during a storm. And there was something like it was tripled or something like that.
It actually can go up by a factor of 5 or 6, depending on the size of the storm.
Right. And so that's an indication that far, far too much drain water, which doesn't have to be treated, is ending up in our sewage system, and we're paying MWRA for treating water that is essentially clean.
That's correct.
And that's one of the big problems we have here.
Absolutely correct.
Can you give us some idea at this point as to how much of an impact we've made in that specific situation at this point, if any?
Yes, that's a very, very difficult number to quantify. What I can tell you is that we have removed millions of gallons of flow on an annual basis. And I think earlier in the budget presentations, you were talking about the MWRA assessment. Well, that assessment would have been on millions more gallons had it not been removed from the system. And that removal has come from two primary things, doing the lining of the pipe that we described, and then doing the inflow removal, which is those catch basins and the sump pumps that we were just talking about.
I'm kind of assuming, I'll be as quick as I can, Mr. President, but I'm getting to a point regarding Ward 4 in particular. It appears then that a lot of the water that was going into the sewage system was either groundwater or water that was diverted from the ground in people's basements, as you suggest, through some illegal sump pumps. Yes. But I would have to assume that a large portion of that is actually groundwater infiltration or infiltration from water that is just draining off. Is that accurate?
Yes, what happens is that there's sort of two types of infiltration or groundwater issues. There's the groundwater within the homes that's pumped into the system by the sump pumps. And then there's also all of the city's infrastructure, those sewer pipes. The predominant majority of them are located below the groundwater table. So when those pipes are all cracked like I was showing in those pictures, you can see the water pouring in through the cracks and the seams in the pipes. That's the other source of a problem that we're trying to address.
All right, now I'll get to my point. As you're well aware, the hill behind us in Ward 4, both hills in fact, have huge issues, particularly in the wintertime when groundwater escapes the ground and it freezes over, and we have several points in this city where we can have 4 or 5 inches thick of water iced over as a result of just groundwater. And it would seem to me that if we don't address running that groundwater off as well as sealing up the sewer pipes, we're going to even have more groundwater coming up through the ground and essentially going freezing up in the winter and causing maybe more problems.
That's correct, Councillor. And in my presentation, when I was talking about the 4 areas of improvements that are necessary, the 4th area was the stormwater system. And one of the things that we're talking about is, in addition to fixing sort of the maintenance problems and the deterioration of the system, there are many areas where we have to extend or expand the drainage system to deal with the exact type of problems that you're describing. And what we're trying to do is get it out of the sewer as fast as we can, but not create another problem without a solution. So it may be that once you make it onto the sump pump list, for example, if you're in an area that needs new drainage work, that may take a little longer to get to than something that's a simple piping reconnect like I showed in the photos before. But the intention is that when we take it out of the sewer, we put it in an appropriate location so it doesn't create a public safety problem.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I think the people on Madison Street, for instance, where there's a serious groundwater problem, Suffolk Avenue, and a few other places up on the hill, should be happy to know that the goal is to prevent that from happening, as well as many of the other problems we have.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Thank you, Councilor Reardon. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sir, I think we're all in agreement that if water can't get out, stormwater, ultimately because of the porous sewer pipes, it'll seep in. Am I correct so far?
Yes, generally speaking.
Will seep
yes.
into those pipes?
It seeps into the porous sewer pipes, that's correct.
Ultimately cost us money and charges through the MWRA.
That's correct.
Okay. My question is, what are we doing with regard to the Central County ditch and particularly the Eastern County ditch to get water to move along faster out through the trash racks, out to the Martin Street pump gate and the B&M pump gate out there, to get the water out that much faster so to prevent it from seeping in to the sewerage system. Yep. Because I can tell you now, and I've taken the time to go down, particularly to the Eastern County ditch, and those ditches are clogged with tires, batteries, pallets, phragmites that's just die there. It impedes the water from going down. So it would seem to me that one of our main functions would be, in addition to the relining, etc., to be cleaning those ditches so that the water could flow that much faster, make sure that the trash rack down on the end of Arcadia Street is operating so the water could get out, and then out at the B&M tracks and out at Martin Street, have pumps out there that were adequate, and I'm talking about maybe permanent pumps that would go on to take that water when the gate is closed and pump it over and out into the open water. Is that a pretty good analogy of what
it absolutely is, and there's 3 or 4 questions in there, so if I can try to answer them to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you.
With respect to the ditches, I said at the hearing last week, we're working with the DPW and the city auditor and purchasing to put out a bid for disposal of everything that's been cast up on the banking so far by the city. We're working with the mayor's office to set up meetings with DCR and Mass DOT to detail exactly what and where we believe are the problems with respect to the shopping carts and the tires and the debris that's in many of those channels, so that where appropriate, they can bear some of the burden in terms of maintenance and cleaning. And then lastly, with respect to the Tide Gate in Martin Street in particular, the spalling and deteriorating concrete is a real problem, so that the existing gate that's there now is got operational problems. And what we're looking at is repairing that gate and providing funding through the construction program for the new permanent pumps that would be there, so that when you have a heavy rainstorm and a high tide at the same time, you can actually get the storm water out of the ditches so that it's not backing up into people's homes.
No, well, I would suggest that happen as soon as possible. And if you ever want to take a couple of hours with me, I'll take you down to that Eastern County ditch, and I'll show you where the shopping carts and all the other debris is.
I've seen much of it, but I'd be happy to do that with you, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Okay. We're going to go through the formality of the other two public hearings by opening it up for... Huh? Oh, you want to speak? I'm sorry. I apologize. Councilor Penta. Councilor Penta, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I understand we did 40% of the sewer lines lined. That's great news. But I hear numbers thrown out to 12,000 meters, sub-pump meters. 12,000 meters throughout the whole city.
Correct.
That's in buildings, that's in wherever it may be.
Correct.
So sub-pumps, the issue. I mean, if you tell me there's 2,000, 3,000, I'd probably believe you, but we don't know that. But here's one of my problems with $700,000 investigation. And the other thing is, I don't know how much you investigated in this area yet, or if you hadn't. But you made a statement that, I mean, the other thing is it might be a typo. You got December 31st, 2015 on the NSC program.
Yes.
So that's a year from December?
Yes. We've given
so
them
in other
18
words, we're leaving all these pipes there we know are going infiltrated into the MWRA all these years, for another year and a half?
No. What we're doing is providing the residents with the city with enough time to become aware of the program and voluntarily sign up. As soon as we get them on the list, we're trying to take them off. But what we're trying to do is give the residents of the city enough time to respond to the program.
Okay, maybe we're giving them too much time, in my opinion. Second of all, I believe every person has a water meter, pays a water bill, got a notice on this.
That's correct.
I think that's very efficient by the city, and I wouldn't have a problem putting it for the next 4 months. We also put it on the TV every day. So here's my point. To spend $700,000 to investigate who has these pumps, and we're going to go in the house where they're illegal and fix them for nothing. And I accept that because we're wasting so much money, and these people might have bought the homes with those in it. So I can accept that.
Yep.
But my thing is, I mean, to go a year and a half, I think, is ludicrous. The other thing is, it's the emphasis on the water ratepayer to notify us if they have a pipe. And I think 130 people already have, which is good news. So we know there's 130 out there, that honest people that came to us, and we're going to pay for it out of our own pocket.
Okay.
The point I bring up is, there's a lot of people out there probably aren't going to let you in the house because they have an illegal apartment. So no matter what you do there, you probably, I mean, there's got to be a point in time that you say, you know something, we gave enough time to spend this kind of money. The other thing is, over the next year and a half, we're going to be putting water meters in every single home that has a water meter. So we're going to spend $700,000 to investigate over the next 14 months or 16 months, and then go back in every home again to say, okay, we're going to put a meter in. To me, it's just, you know, I understand we have to spend money from the consent order, but this money, to me, can't justify it to me why it's needed. The other question I have is, as far as investigation money is, you spent since 2005 or whatever you started the investigation. There's a lot of investigation money going on. How much stuff is still investigated that you have in those books that are this high work that isn't done yet. I mean, got to be a lot. Probably 60% of the sewer lines, I would think. So we keep doing investigation work for how far into the future? I mean, these things are going to change. And I'll give you a perfect example. Supposedly, you investigated the pipe on Winthrop Ave. Now, that pipe, because we know now it's fixed, after all the time and effort and everything else that you people put in to fix it, and the time kept moving like a moving car, but it got finished. And my point is this. When it got finished, all the water now, the sea level is in that poor park there, sitting there. And that tells us that that water would have went into this pipe, and we would have paid for rainwater and everything else into this pipe. Isn't that correct?
The lining of the pipes prevents groundwater from leaking into the sewers.
Right, there's nowhere to go now because the pipe is fixed.
The bigger problem with respect to the park is the stormwater drainage from some of the adjacent properties that sheets right off the parking lots.
That adds to the flood, and I agree with that. That's been like that for years, but that's my point is, if you investigated this pipe back 5-6 years ago, we should have known that there was a major crack in it then from all this water going in. So, I mean, to say, you know, all of a sudden it's an emergency thing, there's got to be some stuff. And I'll bring one other item, because this is going in my committee. It's in my committee until I get some other stuff that I've seen in the budgets in the past 5 or 6 years' budget that we spent $750,000 on cameraing these lines to one company. About, they're give or take a couple thousand. Another company maybe $150,000. I know in 2 weeks we're getting our own pump truck. Now, I know it's going to take someone down DPW to run that truck. So it's a lot of money we're going to save with a couple people. I mean, maybe that's where we get a couple extra people going to the water department that you don't, how often does the camera truck got to go? Once a week, twice a week when you think there's a problem? So I'm just trying to get ways. The question I have is, I know we bought that from the CWRFR fund. Because whatever work the DPW does comes off this consent order, if it's sewer lines, whatever it may be. So in any of this money that we keep bonding and funding and everything else, go towards a couple employees down in the city yard, where it's in the water department and they're doing work from the consent order that they do manholes, they do all this type of work, not as much as you do. But there's a way that, you know, we can help the city out to get some of these workers paid, whereas, I mean, $750,000 on one company to camera trucks. I mean, 2 guys in our truck could probably do it in 3 months, and now you got it for another 9 months. I mean, I'm just looking for ways to help the city out here, because the ratepayer, like I said, the $700,000 is definitely a question with me. And if you want to, you know, extend that further, that's all well and good, because the first paragraph, you got $1.2 million for phase investigating. Is that the sub pump services too?
No.
It's not.
It's for different work.
One other question, and I'll let this go, and I'll talk to my committee, is a year or two ago, we were up here and we showed the same type of book, sub pump money, that we spent money on sub pumps. Now, where that went, I don't know.
Say that again?
We did spend money. Yes. I shouldn't say we spent it. We appropriated money.
That's correct.
To the fund. Now, how much of that money is still left over and how much was spent?
See,
those are the questions I'm actually looking for from the auditor, and I hope I get those in the next week.
Yeah, I was speaking with the auditor actually this evening in the audience, and she and I are preparing the information that you're looking for so that when we come back to Ways and Means, we'll be able to address your questions.
All right. The only reason, and Bob, I don't mean to come after you on, I mean, you're like a messenger in the engineers, and I'm not saying you do a good job or, I mean, a bad job. What I'm saying is the ratepayers need help. If we go at this rate and we don't get help from the federal government to push this off, and I know that, you know, the necessity things have to be done, but, you know, I'm not one to stand up here and just keep appropriating 15 million, 12 million, 2.5 million. It's getting to a point that, you know, maybe people think we could open a check here. I don't know. I mean, because money's going to dry up from the funding, which I know you said we got grant money for it. You know, some of it's low. We're paying for it. Ultimately, the taxpayer's going to pay for this. And, you know, God forbid if something doesn't happen in our favor, water rates are definitely going to, you know, be a major issue with the ratepayers. So I'm one that's going to keep an eye on this whole thing through the whole process. And I think we need more of a communication. when you get funding, and that money is funded to you, when the work is done, we should get a breakdown of what work was done, how much money was spent in that course of 2 or 3 months. Because when you come up here 6 months later for another $5-6 million, I'm going to want to see the information. So maybe we should get it on a monthly basis, Mr. President. I'll leave it at that, and I'll talk more on my committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Penta. Okay, now we're going to go through the formality of the other 2 public hearings. Madam Clerk?
Calendar item number 3, hearing called is ordered on a proposed loan order for CWSRF Planning Project number 3909 in the amount of $700,000 for field investigations related to determination of illicit sewer connections in sump pumps, including required house-to-house inspections.
Proponents?
Made the presentation already.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to close that side of the hearing. Opponents? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side of the hearing. I think we're all set on questions. Okay, move on, please.
Calendar item number 4, hearing called is ordered on a proposed loan order for CWSRF construction project number 3910 in the amount of $15 million for construction of stormwater and wastewater collection systems and capital improvements.
Okay, again, proponents, we've already had the presentation. We're going to close that side of the hearing. Opponents, anybody opposed to this? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that side of the hearing. And Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. President. This money that you're spending here this is on drainage, storm drains, type of.
Yep.
That's what you're talking about. Well, you are aware that, unfortunately, in the city, we have some streets that have no drainage at all.
Yes, I'm very aware of that.
Okay,
Yep.
well, I have a couple, and more than a couple in my ward, but 2 that I've been stressing lately is that, say, Sherman Street and Orvis Street?
Sherman and Orvis?
Yes.
Okay.
No drainage at all.
Okay.
And what's happening is people have legal sump pumps.
Sump pumps, yep.
And even the minor storm, the rainstorm that we have in the winter, the streets freeze, and I have to call. They call me. I have to call, get the street sanded.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be? You have any plans in the future to start work on maybe correcting this problem?
Absolutely. As part of the city's compliance with the consent decree over hopefully a period longer than the 10 years, as we've talked about previously, one of the 4 major work areas will be stormwater. What we're focusing on initially is the very serious problems that exist within the city's buried infrastructure so that we can eliminate, failures and collapses like we saw in Winthrop Ave from being a potential. And then things like investments in stormwater piping may take a little bit longer to sort of work themselves into the priorities, but the intention is by the time that the consent decree is complied with, if there needs to be a stormwater pipe to deal with the types of issues that you're discussing and that Councilor Reardon was discussing earlier, that would be part of the capital improvements that are made. There would be new drainage put in those streets so that there are places to connect those sumps and other things too.
Now, what's the time frame on this?
Right now we are in the 2nd year of construction of 10, so there are roughly 8 more years of construction that would take us through 2022.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I thank Councilor Patch for bringing that up because my one issue that I know of is at the top of Walnut Ave going down Hillside and going down to Woods Avenue. There was no drainage there at all. And based on the 3 or 4 water breaks that we've actually had homes get demolished down on Woods Avenue because there was no drainage for the water to go to. Is that within the plan?
Yes, it's not within the plan that we'd put drainage in because of water main breaks, but in areas where there is no drainage, it would serve the same purpose. So a water main break is the same as stormwater. The conditions that you're describing are among the more challenging because of the hills and the topography. So that's a situation where it's not as simple as a few feet of pipe and a catch basin like you might be able to add on to an existing system. So major capital improvements like that are things that we're trying to plan out so that they occur, at latter phases in the consent decree when the early action and all these leaks and things that are continuously running through the sewer meters that we were talking about have been fixed. So it's a balancing act between fixing major problems before they fail and mixing in new infrastructure as well. And we're trying very carefully to do both.
Right, and, also because what's happened there, now the catch basins down below fill up.
Yes.
Because of the water coming over the hill, and it happens even on a regular rainstorm. So, I would hope that, we can get some guidance of what kind of time period we'd be looking at. So if you look at that in the future and get back to me.
Be happy to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Novoselsky. Mr. Vice President Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bob, there's a couple of streets in my area also that have absolutely no drainage, and law-abiding citizens put their hoses out the window. They take and they drain through the proper means, and the street's getting flooded. Yep. They keep asking me, and I keep telling them there's an infrastructure improvement program going on, but they need relief, and I would like to sit with you and show you exactly the streets I'm talking about.
One of the reasons I tried to provide you with those maps is so you get an idea where certain things maybe have been done, and then if any of you have other areas that you know of that are problems, I'd be happy to meet with you. Email me, call me, whatever it takes. We'll make it happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. That looks like all the questions we have for tonight. Ways and Means.
Thank you. Good evening.
Calendar item number 5, report of the Ways and Means Subcommittee meeting.
Chairman Penta.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we met last Wednesday night, and several were placed on file, so I'll go through those first. Calendar item number 14012, motion 14057, 14058, 14108 were all placed on file, so we can take those and place them on file at the same time.
We'll take them all at once and place them on file. All in favor? All opposed?
At that time, there was 2 other ones taken up, 14119, the free cash appropriation of City Hall account, and 14126, which is what we just went through a public hearing on. That is left in committee, so those are still in committee. And then there were 2 that were passed. If you want to take them up together or not, that's totally up to you. The fraud, waste, and abuse policy was passed unanimously by the Ways and Means Committee. And motion 14123, the contractual waste agreement was passed unanimously by the Ways and Means. So if there's a roll call on those 2, that'll be the report of the Ways and Means Committee. Thank you.
I think we might take them separately because one's a contract and one is a... Okay. Madam Clerk.
On City Council Order number 14-033 on the adoption of the fraud, waste, and abuse policy. Councilor Rigo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Haas?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Penta?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Reardon?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. The fraud, waste, and abuse policy of the City of Revere has been adopted.
Mr. President, there was one other, the Human Resources was sent to Councilor Hass's Legislative Affairs, and that still sits in his committee. That was on the Ways and Means, so that will transfer out of my committee and go to Councilor Hass's committee. Thank you.
Get that, Councilor Haas? Chairman Haas? Great. Thank you. Okay. Madam Clerk, on the contract.
On City Council Order 14-123, this is on the trash disposal contract by and between the City of Revere and Wheelabrator Saugus Incorporated for the period beginning January 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2024. Counselor Rigo.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Gino.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Guanasso.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Haas. Yes. Counselor Morabito. Yes. Counselor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Patch. Yes. Counselor Penta.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Powers.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Reardon.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor and Council President Zambudo.
Yes.
Yes. The contract has been approved. Calendar item number 6, report of the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee meeting.
Chairman Haas.
Thank you, Mr. President. What we had in that committee was basically to create a human resource director. And part of it, we addressed it this evening. We added to it, Councilor Rigo had some issues that he believed should be part of the committee, which we incorporated into the Human Resource Director. So if any counselor has any additional information they would like to submit pertaining to the Human Resource Director, give it to Ashley. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Haas.
Calendar item number 7, report of the Public Works Subcommittee meeting.
Chairman Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, we had a lengthy discussion today, this afternoon, with the Superintendent of Public Works addressing potholes within the community. He indicated that on Washington Ave, they're going to actually do a segment of that over instead of patching it, which to me makes sense. So basically, there was no formal vote taken, and I think it was a very informative meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Calendar item number 8, report of the Appointments Subcommittee meeting.
Chairman Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to suspend rules to take up calendar item number 11, which was voted on last week with the anticipation of receiving this communication from the mayor's office in reference to the reappointment of Miola Construction, 157 Clark Ave, Chelsea, Mass. It was also submitted by the Director of Public Works. So we took that order in consideration of we knew the paperwork was coming, and I just wanted to do this in a legal fashion.
I think we do have to vote on it again, though.
Okay,
So
and we
take-
can vote on that with the package that I will submit to you just right now that we took
Okay.
up earlier.
Great.
Earlier this afternoon, Mr. President, members of the subcommittee and additional members of the council met. We had the following people appear before us regarding reappointments and appointments to various boards. The first was the reappointment of Thomas Abadi, 106 Squire Road, Revere, as Assistant Harbor Master for a 3-year term. The second one, reappointment of Menino Construction Company. They did not appear, and it happens to be the third time that they did not appear. If we offer out one more invitation to them, they do not appear, I would ask that the city clerk strike their name from the licensed drain layers. The next is the appointment of Sean Farrell Excavating, Inc., 53 Gilbert Street, Quincy, Mass., as a licensed drain layer. And then we had reappointment of Christopher Clark, 98 Winton Ave, Revere, as a harbor master for a 3-year term. Then we had reappointment of John Hurley, 10 Gilbert Ave, Revere, Mass., as a harbor master for a 3-year term. And we had the reappointment of Eugene McKenna, 29 Payson Street, Revere, as a member of the planning board for a 5-year term. And then finally, we had the appointment of Giardi in Construction, 145 Beryl Street, Swampscott, as a licensed drain layer. I ask that this body vote favorably because they came out of the subcommittee unanimously. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Clerk.
Shall the City Council approve the appointments as reported by Chairman Guanasso? Councilor Rigo.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Gino.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Haas. Yes. Councilor Morabito.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Reardon.
Yes.
Yes, and Council President Zambudo.
Yes.
Yes, the appointments have been confirmed. Calendar item number 9, communication from Andrew and Joanne Burke, 16 Pierview Avenue, relative to a certain portion of land located at the end of Pierview Avenue.
Mr. President.
Councilor Penta.
Mr. President, this is in my ward, and both applicants are here and have been patiently sitting here. Long-time Beachmont residents. All this, what it is a piece of land owned by the city of Revere. It's squared off. You can't build on it. Anybody knows Pierview Ave. You go up it now. If you park the car and you're not getting another car up, you can't get by it. He's looking to obtain it, to take care of it, put some asphalt and make probably, I don't know, Mr. Burke, is it 5 or 6 bases maybe, which would help the whole neighbor out, not just him. I have no problem with this. The only thing is, I would ask the city council to have this go through the procedure of, we have to go through, the abandonment of the land, and we have to go through each department, DPW. These like 5 signatures on it. So if we can start the process to see, and then we'll take this up at that time.
I've been informed that there's a problem, and so
Okay.
I'm going to ask the city clerk to expound upon that.
Okay.
As stated in the letter from Mrs. Joanne Burke, there is no parcel ID number. There's no identifiable lot line. I had gone to the assessor's office, and Mr. Andrew Ivana was trying to help me through the process, and there's a department, there needs to be additional steps prior to ordering a public hearing. Someone needs to identify this land as City of Revere owned land. And right now, it's not showing that on the GIS map.
Is it showing that it's maybe their land? They own two homes down there.
No, I see the other parcel of land that they're talking about on the map. However, there's no identifying parcel ID number for this piece of land that's out there.
Let me ask you a question, because the Army Corps of Engineers has every piece of, maybe we can, solicit them for information. I know when they put the rock film in it, they had every single piece that, even though it was in the water.
Right. I think what the city clerk is trying to say is we're not finished with the investigation to find out and identify the specific parcel, so then we can go forward with the rest of the legal procedure to make this happen. So we have to get this step out of the way before we can go further with it, but we will work on it and get it done.
But I would still like to solicit all the department heads and stuff, so we can get that out of the way with this.
We can't solicit them without an identifiable
I agree.
All right, good. Okay, Council Powers, you want to add something to this?
Yes, just as a point of information, I would think that the Registry of Deeds in Boston would have some idea of who owns that land, and also...
I think, not to interrupt you, sir, but I think you have to have an identified parcel before you can go to the Registry of Deeds to see who owns the parcel.
They may have it already identified in there, I would think.
Well, we've got to, I think we can identify it in-house here.
Yeah.
This is going to go to economic development and land sales, I guess. Okay?
Calendar item number 10, communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of TerraTech Construction, Inc., P.O. Box 738, Marlborough, Mass., as a licensed drain layer.
Appointments.
Calendar item number 15, motion presented by Councilor Novoselsky, that the mayor request the superintendent of public works to repair the public stairs between Campbell Avenue and North Shore Road, adjacent to 1709 and 1695 North Shore Road. Rats are burrowing below the stairs and causing a public safety hazard for the residents in the area. All holes shall be filled with concrete or a type of epoxy to prevent the rats from digging.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this issue has been going on for years, but the situation with the rodents has gotten out of control. It is city property. We have been baiting it through Nick Kattenhauser's office, and his recommendation was exactly what I said, and the motion was put in last year but never acted upon. But now Nick is pursuing this through us again to see if we can get DPW to get this work done sooner than later. Thank you.
On the motion, all in favor, all opposed? So voted.
Calendar item number 16, motion presented by Councilor Guanasso, that the mayor request the Traffic Commission to hold a public hearing for the installation of a handicap parking sign at 20 Beach Road.
Speaks for itself.
Thank you. All in favor, all opposed? So voted.
Calendar item number 17, motion presented by Councilor Zambudo, that the City Council present a certificate of commendation to Jeremy Neri-Orn in recognition of him attaining the rank of Eagle Scout.
If I might, I put this in because I had the privilege of attending and representing the City Council and the Mayor, as a matter of fact, and at the Court of Honor for this young man. And I am just so impressed by the work that goes into becoming an Eagle Scout. I never was one myself. However, it's very impressive, and this is an impressive young man, and I think that we should honor him up here with a certificate. So, on the motion, all in favor, all opposed? So voted. There's no further business. We will be adjourned until Monday the 9th for a quick scholarship meeting of the George Colella Scholarships. Meeting adjourned.